Good day, you guys. Welcome to Forward Focus. I hope you can all hear me okay. Roger, Roger. Yes. All right. So it's the end of May already. How did that happen? You guys ready for summer? It's already 105 here, so I think summer has officially hit. So what we are looking at here today is we're going to take a look at what's going on in the overall market. I know 2020 has been crazy. Let's flip on over here. We're going to begin with the indices. We had a nice, beautiful measured move here just right now on the NASDAQ, coming out of a cute little inverse head and shoulders. Show you guys that. This is just getting out of this trade here as we were heading into class. So I'll show you what was going on here. I need a little bit of a bigger time frame though, but not quite that big. Let's make this like a 400 tick. I'm going to close my door here too because I got my little guy doing classes in the background. He has technically officially graduated from the second grade, but I've got him in summer school. Well, another school, but in LA, doing online schooling. So here's what we got going on here in the NASDAQ, and this is just the intraday charts. So it's kind of interesting because we've been in like this, we call this a zone of pain. It's basically just this lovely, messy little area where it comes down to smaller time frame shifts to really determine what's going to happen and what's going to get going. And it was actually cleaner in the S&P 500. I bought it originally on the S&P, and then I added with the NQ. So I'm going to actually flip over to that first so you guys can see the bottom first more clearly. So here, what you can see is this kind of tried to do an inverse head and shoulders here overnight, really couldn't get going. So then it went down to this 2B pattern, where you've got one wave and then a second wave. And on some of the charts, I think it was a time frame chart, this actually looked like a momentum reversal down here too. If I go down to a smaller time frame, you can see that. So this is just this nice shift in momentum here after really strong selling into yesterday's close. Let's see, I think a 300 tick is going to show us what I need to show you here. I might just pull it up in Telegram too. This was my first trade of the day here. So here's what we had going on. We were kind of coming off of this low. So this is that second bigger move. And you can see there were 3 lows here, but it wasn't really a perfect momentum reversal. Why? Why was this not a perfect momentum reversal around like 1053? What do you guys think? By the way, we've got a mega phone here at highs on the NASDAQ. Yeah, online teaching is definitely getting to be a lot more common. But hey, you guys been doing the online teaching here for a long time with me, right? Like 20 plus years. Yeah, so we don't have like perfect V's. They're not parallel channels. This is kind of a little bit stunted up here in the middle. So it should have been like a little bit more like that. And that can help get it going. So when that doesn't happen, then I start to watch for momentum reversal plus. And we had a beautiful one here. Nice. 2 waves down. I've got this showing you here on the MES. What's kind of interesting is that some of the micros have been showing the patterns just a little bit better than they are on the E-minis. So sometimes you're going to see something a little bit more cleanly on the micro. So a lot of times I'll post the chart on the micro, even if I happen to be trading the ES on it. So here's where I was a little bit late on this. Why do you think I waited though? Why did I kind of pause on this? Anyone have a guess? Yeah, the momentum down here. I mean, technically you could have done like this as like a double tap. I was waiting to see if it might do like a little baby to be down here, and it just didn't do it. But then the momentum popped. And so that momentum pop tells me, oh, hey, great, we're good to go. And so I got that I was trying to get it on the pullback, and it kind of filled me on as it started to bounce again. And then here we had, this doesn't look like as much of a megaphone on the ES, but on the micros, it looked more like a typical mega phoenix. You had like the slightly lower low and slightly higher high, and it looked really pretty. So I added in on that one. Now, typically when you get a momentum reversal plus, even though you've got, your typical resistance levels with a 2B, they usually go past that. So oftentimes you get more of a megaphone type of formation. So if you get a break down here to the lower low, you'll usually expect higher high over here. So I used that measured move zone to take partials, and then it went into a base, and the base looked even prettier on some of the other charts where it was pretty flat. So I just added back in. I'm like, oh, hey, this has more room for it. But then at this point, we were at a lot of additional resistance up there. So I went ahead and got out of that. I thought we might go into a bigger correction at that point. This did end up still going, but the momentum has kind of shifted. So here's where you can see the details on that. I know a lot of you guys like to look at these because it helps you out, because you're going to see the same pattern playing out over and over again in the overall market. So you can do a screenshot of this. I can actually, I might just save this and put this in as an attachment for you guys too. So add it as a handout for you. You can grab it under choose file here. Something that you can look at and study. Just got to find out where I keep my Telegram downloads here. See where are we at. Here we go. Grab that. When I copy and paste using the wrong keyboard. Hilarious. All right, well, I'm going to get this put here in the downloads. And then we will move on. By the way, that megaphone I was telling you guys about on the NASDAQ right now, look at that. It's on the ES here, but show you the NASDAQ. It was just triggering. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. This is what I was mentioning up here when we were first getting started. Let's see here. I don't know why it's not letting me copy and paste the thing, but I'll figure it out. Downloads. I don't like the upload file thing on go to webinar, because it doesn't just go and go straight to your certain folders. It just kind of gets a little bit tricky, and it won't let you paste in the directory. But there you go. You can have that there in your downloads. So this is actually pretty picture perfect megalange type or megaphone type of pattern here we just had. So let's go back. This is what we're looking at, right now is basically the overall market is just at that bigger zone of pain area. So what did I tell you guys yesterday in League of Traders? What did I say to focus on for kind of like the rest of the day and, basically the rest of the week here? We did a pretty good bigger outlook at the overall market yesterday. I kind of put Nicole on the hot plate there. Her dad was in class, so I'm like, hey, Nicole, you gotta tell us what you think here. So yeah, I mean, we are at this zone where you can see this was trying to do a megaphone on that bigger time frame, right? And it just is struggling up here, you guys. I mean, it couldn't get going with the momentum reversal over here because the momentum reversal had like the same type of problem that the momentum reversal off of the lows on the ES did. It's the same type of problem. And then it didn't go for a momentum reversal plus. So if it had tried to do a momentum reversal plus, this is where I wanted to show you that ES. Let me grab that again in the background here. I want you to see the difference here. So here, I'm going to kind of line these up pretty close. So here is the momentum reversal that doesn't look perfect, right? So what it did was it broke the channel still, but then it went and it did another 2 waves down. And that's great to help get a bigger turnaround happening. Over here, here's your 3 lows. Again, this juncture here is really similar to what we saw on the ES this morning. Of course, this is our 240 minute, and this is just a 300 tick on the ES. So what would have helped this give us a stronger setup over here would have been if this had pulled down enough to have broken this channel. So just like this broke the channel here, and kind of make these colors a little bit easier for you guys to see. So like there and there, if that had broken the channel here, what that would do is that could allow that to go and do a 2T or a momentum reversal plus. The plus is the 2T, and then flip and turn around with stronger strength again. So it would have looked like that, and it just couldn't. So that means that since this didn't go with the most probable pattern, there's a lot more indecision up here. We don't have as strong of a pattern developing in the overall market right now. And since we don't have that strong pattern, we need to focus on what's going on the smaller time frames instead. So this is trying to do a megaphone, but since it has this move up here, now the megaphone is a time correction. So instead of like basically trying to round things off at highs like we saw on the NASDAQ here just a second ago with the smaller megaphone on the NASDAQ, and I want to put that in the background so you can see that. A new window. I want you guys to see this comparison here. I'm going to put it on 100 tick. By the way, that is just going smashingly here. So what this does is, whoops, disappeared on me. What this does is it essentially treats this a megaphone as a momentum reversal. So over here, your megaphone is coming after a failed momentum reversal. So that makes this more of a time correction where the risk is higher that it could still try to pop again. So it's a little bit more on the iffy side. We don't really know which way this fully wants to break. It couldn't make it up to the upper end of this range. It's just kind of chopping along here in the middle, kind of trying to do a head and shoulders. But again, overall, iffier pattern on this bigger time frame. So we've got to focus on the patterns that are setting up on the smaller time frame. So this was a short that we saw triggered right going into our session here. And then this is the second wave of it. So now you have a nice 2 waves down. This is a typical main support level here. If we caught that short, or if anybody in here caught that short, did anybody catch it? I know we've got a lot of megaphone traders in here, but it triggered right smack as class started. You did. Awesome. Yeah, so we've got a couple of folks in here actually. So you've got the nice 2 waves down here. This would be a typical target level. I'd make sure I'd have partials protected there. This is also a 50% retracement level from another earlier fib zone. I don't know which one. I'm just looking up at my chart and seeing the nice big red line going across it, which tells me there's a 50% retracement on one of my fibs at that point. So we've got a good support level here. So this is something, it's very different than what's happening on the daily charts right now. So we just want to focus on these smaller intraday setups right now. Don't get too wrapped up on the larger daily and weekly time frames. Like I said, this can go into a range and even do another pop here. And on the ES, this congestion is lower here. So it could even try to go and do a measured move at this point. Let me show you that ES. So see, here's the ES. It's like it basically congested right there in the middle. It didn't have much of a decline in volume, but it did have some. More of a decline would have been more beneficial for the bulls. Let me put your retracement levels on here because these are going to be retracements that you're going to want to watch. So you're getting close to the 76.4, but just not really there yet. So very much more of a no man's zone in here. Use a lot more caution. Don't get like hung up on, you know, what you think of as a bigger picture bias, because in something like this, it can flip on you, and it can do it with just a single intraday momentum move shift. One impulse move or shift in momentum intraday can totally change how this ends up playing out. All right, let's look at some individual stuff, you guys. So we've got some questions on some individual stocks. We've got CVM. So CVM here on the daily is just coming off of a double top. Notice the decline in the volume right in here. That's what was really helpful to try to get that going up there again. But I'm going to add a weekly. So I don't have a huge bias on this on the weekly right now because it is in one of those levels where it really can go back and forth a lot. It's not something that would be at all difficult for this to pull back into here again at this point. You can see here's the last time correction, but these movements were smaller. Here's the same time correction over here. So this could even go into a much longer time correction at this point. So I would be very, very cautious on the bullish side on this right now, but it is something where the weekly can go either way. I just think it's going to pull in a little bit more here. There's no shift in momentum yet, anything like that, to try to get the bulls to come back in on this very easily. Even intraday here, where it's trying to round off at the lows, just not managing to do it. This is actually a bearish setup here, where you've got this shift again. So it's kind of at a do or die point for that. It would need to go here pretty soon because you're kind of looking at this as a double bottom. So if we look at the time development, it really needs to kind of get going in here soon. But yeah, I don't see too much on here that I really like right now. Let's see SNE. That was a nice shift there up at that high. I think your S&E is going to do whatever our S&P 500 ends up doing here. So right now it's kind of trying to roll over. Risk is that this can go into a megalanche and end up pulling back down. But it is a very iffy zone. We again call this a zone of pain because you're kind of shifting into it. It's kind of going back and forth. It needs like that final shift in there to decide which way it's going to go, and it can go back and forth. So like it shifted here to the downside and then popped, but it could just as easily shift again and come back down where you end up with a head and shoulders in here and kind of this mega lanche break, because right now the momentum in this is straight sideways. So even though it looks like it goes up and pops and you would think, oh hey, it's bringing strength in reality you've got a time correction here. So that time correction can easily break to the downside still. Tesla. How disappointing was that rocket launch on Wednesday, huh, guys? All geared up, ready to go, and pff, nope. How many of you were watching that? The SpaceX launch? The Dragon. I know some of you were just because I posted it in the room. You should have their discipline, right? You guys, I mean, that is a great comment there. You know, they could have pushed it and done it anyway and probably been fine. But they've learned from past disasters that just little bitty things being off can have a massive impact and lead to catastrophic failure. So, I mean, we saw that a number of times. Biggest disasters in the history of our space launching have been because of that. So, yeah, they decided, hey, you know what? We don't meet all of the protocols. We're going to abort. Step down, back away, try again. That's a really, really good analogy there that you made. So what we're looking here at Tesla is that we're really coming off of this previous high here. We had that secondary really strong move here. So we were looking for that third one. And at this point, you know, we could do this as a check mark. It might be able to try to get going again, but it really is coming down to what's happening within this little range here. The volume is very light. So this could take very little to try to pop this again. So we'll see how this goes. On the intraday charts, there's not really anything yet. Here's what you got going on the intraday. You can see, you know, some of the bearishness and then kind of flipped back around. So there's, you know, it's really going back and forth. It doesn't have a huge bias. This could kind of chop around here at the high, and that will help the bias to be in, then be able to break again higher on Monday. I wouldn't be surprised if it gaps though. Be something that gaps. And if it gaps, it could actually be a gap trap, just depending upon the gap. So the SpaceX is going to try to launch again here tomorrow at 3:22. That would be Eastern time zone. So you guys can keep an eye on that, and you can just go to NASA's main website and NASA's YouTube channel, and they'll do the live like they did yesterday. First time in like 10 years, Americans are back in space on our own ships. Tesla and Amazon are the two stocks that the price has never reflected the fundamentals. That's true. This is why I don't really follow fundamentals so much. Amazon is kind of looking a little iffy here. It's gone past what I would see for like a really pretty avalanche, but you can see that momentum reversal up here. I'm basically ignoring the gap. So we got our 3 highs here, a shift, 2 waves really steep, and then it's kind of shifting. So we'll see if this can, do a breakdown or not. It's not the perfect zone over here for this to happen, but it's certainly still a possibility on this intraday chart. This is a 5-minute. On our daily, we've got a 2T. So here's the 2T on the daily. So we're really back at T2 here on the daily as far as the support level. So this could definitely still pull back down. It could have a good shot of doing it with a slower momentum move though. A lot more of that choppiness as it heads lower. That is what I would anticipate on this. So on the daily chart, I would expect that this heads lower next week, but that it's going to do it with a lot of overlap from one bar to the next. And that's because of the extreme move here. So this will usually go like this, chop, 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 chop. So you'll see like a channel like that. That's usually what's going to happen here. And then it can pop again. So let's watch that next week, see how that tries to play out. W for this afternoon. Take care, Andrea. So, I mean, this is kind of did that, where it sort of chopped and popped, but it wasn't as clean as like what I was just talking about. Let's change, go to like a 10-minute, add some more data. Nice 2 waves down and then the flush. Ooh, this is kind of getting tricky here. So this can go and develop into a shallow avalanche and fall back again. This is a really tricky zone. So see how this overall channel is slower, even though it tried to pull up here. What happened here, Harvey? So it's gaining momentum, la da 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 da, and then up here, what happens, Harvey? Yeah, it pulled back a third of this move. So what does that mean, you League of Trader folks? Right, it could keep that shift of momentum going and then end up collapsing more. So when you see something do like a third pullback of a strong channel, and that channel has been going strongly and gaining momentum, it increases the chances that that can do a greater pullback. So what it can do is it'll have that first sharp move, it can go into like a shallow avalanche and then break again. So you want to watch that lower channel very closely, because if that channel goes, it can really bring in some strong momentum again. And the longer this kind of plays out here, the easier it is for that to do that. So it can look like that. So that's something that we got to watch for here on this one for the bulls. Trickier to try to turn it around. So it's basically getting close to your do or die point. You can see here the 2 waves. So this is a tilted avalanche here. So this is your first correction, this is your second correction. So your do or die point is the lower end of this channel, where it would come into like a third low, 1, 2, 3. So that's the point. If it was going to go into a momentum reversal, it would hold there. And sometimes it'll try to do like a double tap. So you would need to see it hold there to try to flip. Almost to do 2T on this. This is kind of trying to go into bigger Phoenix because you got a really strong move up, but it's an extreme move, false first high. So extreme upside move, false high, then real high. Typically for Phoenix, this would give you a second wave and then it would go. And then you basically have your inverse head and shoulders there. So the problem is the way this formed over here, that when it tries to go again, it can have a stunted move and really struggle to try to get going. I need your schedule. So yeah, I mean, this looks like it could do another pullback in here on the 1 minute. I'm a little bit delayed, you guys. This isn't a live chart on here. I think it's like a 10-minute delay here. But that could go and do another pullback, another pull higher. Let's see. What else do you guys want to look at? IWM. So it's just kind of on a creepy, steady pace to the upside. So Russell. We're right at the 61.8% retracement. Gosh, it really looks like it wants to hold it, doesn't it? Ooh, that's why. We're right at all of that resistance right there. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about like how the S&P can have that potential to try to push higher, but that we're really at a zone where it's so iffy. I mean, this is the same type of thing here going on with the Russell. We're right at really massive resistance here. Yes, it hit fast though, which is trickier because if it hits with like a V bottom, it's harder for it to break it. So like what happens, like if this like came down here like that and then came back up into this level, it would be much easier to get another reaction off of that zone. Since it hits faster than average, it can have a better chance of eventually pushing through it, but it's still going to give you that first initial reaction. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. I kind of like this for even more of a pullback. And that gap zone is going to be kind of easy to fill, I think. I would not be surprised if we pull back into the middle of this congestion again next week. There's just not a major setup here for it, though. You guys don't see my screen? Hold on a second. What is going on? All right, how about now? Yes, okay, I hit something on it. it paused it. So I think that it's easier for this to pull back in the middle of this congestion here. GOLD, nice move coming off that high. This has room for a second wave. This looks a lot like what we just saw on this 30-second of the NASDAQ, doesn't it? See that there? This is a 100 tick, but here's the 30-second. You can see what's going on here. So, I mean, this has room that it can still keep falling, this GOLD here. I'm going to go look at the futures quick. Futures on gold are holding up pretty well. Had a Phoenix on the 60-minute this morning. Let's see. So here's GLD. So this is pretty close to what's going on in our futures. So you can see that's holding up pretty well there. Can't see the Phoenix because it was mostly after hours and pre-market. So it's basically right in here. Good short-term resistance, but still room for this to push on the upside more. So it's basically a retest of this zone of this congestion. So it still has room to push up through there. My only concern is that this is so short compared to our upside moves before. So you've got a 1, 2, 3 over here, shorter base. It can still do it with a break, but a little bit trickier. If it actually does, that can go fast. Because technically one of the potential patterns you would have is a 1, 2, 3 out of this. John, I've got a fib extension on the ES anchored at a high. Oh, let me go pull up the ES. Put into perspective what you're talking about here. I closed it. All right. We'll put this back on the ES. All right, let's see. What time frame are you looking at, John? Yeah, see, it just wouldn't take much for that to pull back in. 2000 tick. All right, let's flip one of these over. We'll just use 1,000 to be close enough. All right, fib extension on the ES, anchored at the high of 3065. Okay, why don't you show me your chart? Can you post that into Telegram for us? My main retracement that I've got here for fibs, you guys, is I put this one on. And that was the main retracement that I was using. But then I'm also looking at this here too. So what's interesting is, see here, 50%, 61.8. Here, 38.2. So you're still getting fib levels hitting with both of the ways that you draw that. That's why fibs are so awesome, because even if you draw it totally different than I am, you're still going to get zones of support showing. Oops. Okay. So you're looking at this as I move down. Let me remove this. So you've got a couple ways you can do the fib extensions on this too, because actually this is one of those wonky ones, Nicole. We were like, hey, I can't find any examples to show you. This is one of them. See where this point is lower and then the higher point is back here? So that's one of those ways that you can do your fibs a little funky because your congestion is weird. We were trying to find an example to show, and we just couldn't find a good example, but this is exactly what it is. So you're basically right now at a 61.8% retracement right now. To get to that level, you know, what I would really expect to have happening, whoops, clear that, is that this would be one correction, this would go into a second correction, and then you would have to look for another wave down. So then you would be looking for an extension here to there. Does that make sense? That's what I would expect if that's going to go and try to do another sell-off. That this will still congest along here about that same amount of time as over here, and then it would try for a breakdown. So that would take it into Sunday. Carl was saying something about Trump coming up on a live cast again here this afternoon. Press conference, 2 p.m. Eastern. Oh yeah, because he's been in talks with China. So here it's at 2 p.m. Eastern. There's a good clickbait headline, huh? There's only one generation in the U.S. history that's considered to be more unlucky than the lost generation. Let's see. We've got, I mean, this is trying to go into a bigger megaphone on the NASDAQ on the 800 tick right now. That's definitely putting in some downward pressure here too. So here's your 30-second. I'll show you that 800 tick so you can see that bigger megaphone. Well, here's 1,000 tick. That'll work too. Meanwhile, gold's holding up. So you can see what it's kind of trying to do is that it's treating this as part one of the correction, and then it's kind of treating this like a part two. So you've got this megaland or megaphone that's forming here. Could be a megalange. But yeah, I can give another breakdown here. I would like a little baby head and shoulders in here. That'd be kind of nice to get it going on the short side again. I think that's what I'll watch for, see if we can have that forming here into the early afternoon. And then be really cautious on the bearish side on gold, because gold's holding up pretty well, you guys. It's definitely at levels where there's still more upside. It's only like 61.8% extension on that Phoenix or so. All right, folks. Well, I am going to call it a day here and head on out and check on my little guy and how his classes are going. And I will see you back here next week. So have a wonderful rest of your day, you guys. Use some caution as we're going into that news conference here this afternoon. And yeah, you too. Stay safe out there. Thanks, Jay. I will.